So when you look at where does Exodus fit into all of this, three of the major themes of the Pentateuch: law, nationhood, law, nationhood, and the idea of holiness. All of those issues are related in the book of Exodus. All right? We're going to look at how Exodus fits into the Bible. All right? How important Exodus is, not just important to the 5 books of Moses. Not only it is the central point in the Pentateuch, the central point in the Torah. Why? A nation is created, a nation has been redeemed, a nation has been given law, a nation comes into covenant relationship with God. That's the book of Exodus. Joseph said to his brothers, I am about to die, but God will visit you and bring you up out of this land, to the land that he swore to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. Then Joseph made the sons of Israel swear, saying, God will surely visit you, and you shall carry my bones from here. So Joseph died, being 110 years old. They embalmed him, and he was in a coffin in Egypt. These are the names of the sons of Israel who came to Egypt with Jacob, each with his household: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, Benjamin, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Asher. All the descendants of Jacob were 70 persons. Joseph was already in Egypt. Then Joseph died, and all his brothers and all that generation. But the people of Israel were fruitful and increased greatly. They multiplied and grew accordingly strong, so that the land was filled with them. Notice that there is a connection between what we have in Genesis 50, the last chapter, and it links straight into the book of Exodus. So the Exodus, in its first paragraph, the first 7 verses, all right, it doesn't stand alone. And as I said, it is critical in the larger scheme of the book of law, the Pentateuch, the 5 books of Moses, the Torah, however you're going to call it. All right, so there's a link between the two. And by that, the phrase, now these are the names, is that which links the 2 books. And these are the names. All right, so there's a connection from Genesis, from Exodus 1, from verses 1 to 7. I want you to see that connection. There's also something else that shows how Genesis or Exodus fits into Genesis, and I'm going to show you something now. God, Genesis chapter 1, creates the heavens and the earth. He created man in his own image. Adam and Eve are created. Adam sins. All right. Now, Adam sin, from Adam's sin, basically, we are ushered into the sinfulness of man, the first murder and all of those kind of things, Cain and Abel, all of that. And so what we have here is that the world became so crooked, so evil, that in Noah's day, God caused the flood, and they were destroyed. A new generation comes about. We have the family struggles of Jacob and all of those people, and Abraham, not Jacob, and all of those people. All right. God comes and he makes a promise to Abraham, which we looked at in the previous class, where he gives Abraham three promises: the land promise, the name promise, and the seed promise. All right. What is God doing? God is preparing to redeem, God is creating a people, as I said earlier, a people whom he has redeemed. The Abraham has Isaac and Jacob. Jacob has Joseph. Joseph is sold into Egypt by his brothers, and they go down to Egypt. They go down to Egypt and they populate the place, and that is how we see the connection between the book of Genesis and the book of Exodus. So, in Genesis 46, all right, we have information about the family and all of that. I won't read. I won't read all of it because we can read it on our own time. If you look at verse 8, now these are the names of the descendants of Israel who came into Egypt: Jacob and his sons, Reuben, Jacob's firstborn. All right. So we know that Abraham actually goes into Egypt. Now, Jacob's children populate the Israel, and of course Pharaoh is mad about that. All right. And he enslaves them, and the Redeemer comes. The whole point I'm making is that when we look at how does Exodus relate to Genesis, a promise is made to Abraham. Three promises, and we know what those are. I won't repeat them. Now, there is a connection then between Exodus and Genesis. In what way? In Exodus, God is creating a nation for himself. He has redeemed a people for himself. And what happens to that? That's the book of Exodus. He delivers them out of Egyptian bondage in Exodus. But those people need laws, they need rules, they need directions, they need a law to guide them. How they're going to live their lives, how they are going to conduct their worship, how they're going to conduct their society that he created for them in Exodus. Leviticus plays that situation. Leviticus fills that part because Leviticus becomes the book where God continues the story of the giving of the law. So most people, if you had a choice to study the book of Exodus and the book of Leviticus, most of us would choose the book of Exodus. You are not going to touch Leviticus. Why? Because Leviticus seems to be dry, and laws and all of the things and names that we can't pronounce and all of those kind of things. But Leviticus is central because what Leviticus does, it shows that God is giving or has given the laws, the rules to govern not just worship, but how that society is to be governed. how they are to conduct themselves as they move to the promised land that God has provided for them. Now, when you come to the book of Numbers, right? What Numbers does for us is to say, as they move towards Canaan, as they move towards the promised land, what we see in the book of Numbers is how they are wandering, how they are traveling in the wilderness, going towards um, Canaan. So whereas God created the world in Genesis, the family of Abraham makes a promise to Abraham in Genesis. Exodus, he creates a nation for himself, gives them law, says to them, we're going to go to Canaan. Leviticus is that book that continues the story of the giving of the law. Leviticus is about consecration. Leviticus is about the priesthood that is to govern the lives of the Israelites. Numbers now tells us how they left Egypt. What not the book of Numbers does is relate how the Israelites are moving from Sinai and they are going towards the promised land. There's a major thing that happens in the book of Exodus, the golden calf, where there's a threat to destroy them. But God, through the intercession of Moses, saves some of them. All right. Now, I want you. No, let me leave that for a while. When it comes to Deuteronomy, what Deuteronomy is about, Deuteronomy it records the death of Moses, and what becomes now is that what Deuteronomy is doing is reminding the people of the experiences in Exodus and saying to them, we are going to have to reinterpret, not reinterpret, we are going to have to repeat the law that was given in Exodus. Do it, meaning second time. We're going to repeat that law that was given at Sinai in preparation for your journey into Canaan. And so what Deuteronomy is about, Deuteronomy basically is about the sermons of Moses and the repetition of the law that was given at Sinai. So in terms of the where does Exodus fit into all of this? I want us to see that the Pentateuch, the law, the Torah, 5 books of Moses, whatever you want to call it, that there are some major themes in this book, or in this, when I say this book, I mean the book of Moses, the law, the Pentateuch, the 5 books of Moses, Torah, whatever you want to call it, right? So here is what happens. God promises, all right? God promises is made to the patriarchs in Genesis, all right? Exodus reveals the covenant and creates a nation that is governed by the law of Moses. That's the book of Exodus. Where Leviticus is concerned, the theme is the explanation, the illustration of the law, where there is an emphasis on consecration, on worship. There's an emphasis on the priesthood. Numbers gives us a concept of the wanderings in the wilderness. That's Numbers. And Deuteronomy talks about here is how you prepare for Canaan that you're going to go into in the next couple of days or months. So when you look at where does Exodus fit into all of this, three of the major themes of the Pentateuch: law, nationhood, law, nationhood, and the idea of holiness. All of those issues are related in the book of Exodus. All right? So I want us to look at certain passages here now. Look at, we're going to look at how Exodus fits into the Bible. All right? How important Exodus is, not just important to the 5 books of Moses. Not only it is the central point in the Pentateuch, the central point in the Torah. Why? A nation is created, a nation has been redeemed, a nation has been given law, a nation comes into covenant relationship with God. That's the book of Exodus. Now, but Exodus also has a very important part in Bible, not just the 5 books of Moses.